Thank you.
Shiviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid Ki mimini Balemot Shiviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid Ki mimini Balemot Lachen samach libi vayagel kevodi af besari yishkon lavetach af besari yishkon el havetach. Amen.
I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Death has taken our beloved Cookie. And tonight we are here to remember her. We are here to care for her loving family, for her brother, Ken Bernstein and Joni, and their daughter Allison, her sister Lenore and Richard, and their children Brian and Rose and Julie. Aunt Seal, Cookie's first cousin, Leonard Bernstein and Cookie's also her former husband, Rabbi Frank Stern. But especially we are here to care for and love her children and her grandchildren. David, Debbie, and Becca and Josh, we are here loving you and embracing you. I looked at the calendar earlier, and now we look at the night sky. It is Rosh Chodesh. It is Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Rosh Chodesh is a woman's holiday, they say. It's the day in which a woman is blessed by her family. She is called an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, and truly Cookie. Cookie was a woman of valor. Actually, she is a woman of valor in our hearts. And it is Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Kislev is the month in which we celebrate Hanukkah, time of miracles, a time of being able to survive difficulties and challenges. Cookie did that. So many miracles in her life. But especially looking out, I am overwhelmed because there are generations of miracles here. There's at least 4 generations I know of that have been taught by her, and so many more. That's kind of why we did it this way, because we knew how many of us wanted to be here and to remember her. So yeah, it's very appropriate to be remembering Cookie and memorializing her on this Rosh Chodesh Kislev, because she also was our light. The family is truly blessed to have so many who love and support them. And they want to acknowledge the many groups who touched Cookie and whom she loved in return. From her Chavara to the sisterhood, the brotherhood, the worship committee, the social action committee, preschool and religious school committees, parents and children for generations. The full staff of Temple Beth Shalom, from the offices to the amazing maintenance staff, to those who welcomed her into their homes to celebrate holidays or just for a casual dinner or cup of coffee. Her canasta group who even came to her when she was in Orange Hills. Her friends from the time that she was in Cincinnati to her life here in Orange County. Every soul that touched her life, touched her family's life, and her family is ever grateful. And finally, for every child, every student of any age, whose life she touched through her teaching and her singing, we sing praises to her tonight. I was handed a poem earlier today from a student of hers that I want to share with you. We shared it earlier at the graveside. For those of you who were there, you will please forgive my duplicating of this. But I think it speaks for so many children. Dear Ms. Cookie, I'm not very good at expressing myself, so I thought I would write you a poem instead. I hope you like it. Ms. Cookie, you will always be in my heart. Thank you for Good Morning Boker Tov, and thank you for Penny in the Pushka. Thank you for Chicken in the Pot, and thank you for Cookie's Corner. Thank you for Atid, and thank you for cooking. Thank you for always being at services so I could come say hello. Thank you for always having a smile on your face when I needed it most, and thank you for having open arms to hold me and hug me. Thank you for telling me stories, and thank you for being a part of my family. The list goes on and on. But most importantly, thank you for being you, because Ms. Cookie, you will always be in my heart. Ms. Cookie, I miss you so much already. I couldn't have asked for a better teacher to help make me who I am today. Ms. Cookie, I miss you so much, but I'm glad you're in a better place. Thank you for everything, because Ms. Cookie, I love you. Love, Megan Griffin, and probably every child who's in here. So many children she has touched, but nobody more than her grandchildren. Becca and Josh, will the two of you please come and share with us your reading?
While she was a cookie to many of you guys, she will always be a Nama to us. We prepared a poem for her. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember her.
In the blowing of the wind, in the chill of winter, we remember her.
In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her.
In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember her.
In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her.
When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her.
When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember her.
So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her.
We turn in our booklets to Psalm 23, As we listen to these ancient words chanted, and then we will join together in the English.
Adonai roi lo echsar binot desher yarbitseni al mei menuchot yenaleini nafshi eshovev yancheni v'magilei tzedek leman shemo גם כי אלך בגט שלמוות לא אירא רע כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורריי, תשענת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני, כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We turn to words of Esa Enai, how we lift our eyes to the mountains, searching for the source of our help. Our help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth.
אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מאדוני עושה שמיים, שמיים וארץ. הייתן למוט רגליך, הינום שומריך. הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, ויריח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם.
I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Cookie loved the voice of children. She loved to hear them sing. When I would visit her in the hospital, she would never let me leave, of course, without singing Mishaberach to her. It was recently that she said to me, there are some songs that I want to make sure someday when the day comes that are sung at my funeral. It's interesting always to have somebody tell you what they want at their funeral, but that's a blessing, let me tell you. And she said she wanted Mishaberach to be sung here. And I thought for a little while, why Mishaberach? And then somebody told me today, and now I know why. She wants us to have healing as well. She wants her family to have healing. And she loves the voices of children. So I'm going to ask, like we did last Tuesday night, which, by the way, last Tuesday night in our religious school, our 3rd through 7th graders sang Mishaberach. We recorded it. Marla and Cindy took the recording to Cookie. She heard the recording, she saw it, she smiled, she was happy, and she said, they sound like a choir, because you all do. So I'm going to ask all of Cookie's children if you all will please come up and sing Mishaberach with all of us. L'kol zman veit l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a season. A time for every experience under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to grieve and a time to dance. A time to throw stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to discard. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. There are so many words and so many memories that fill this place. And they come not only from here, but they come from Israel as well. And so I share with you words from Rabbi Donnell from Jerusalem. Dear Rabbi Cohen, thank you for allowing me the opportunity for expressing some of my thoughts about my friend Cookie Stern of blessed memory. As I sit to write these words, the sadness and shock of the immediacy of her passing still echo within me. It was just a few short hours ago that I received the email informing Wendy and me that Cookie had died. A week ago, I had spoken with her just before her surgery to wish her well, and she sounded positive, though frail. Just yesterday, I got very good news. Word came that Cookie was beginning to receive guests, but she had a request. It seems that she was bored with watching television, and she was having difficulty concentrating on reading. So she asked that her visitors came prepared with stories, specifically Cookie stories. Memories and reminiscences about people and times shared together. I found that to be a very positive sign of Cookie's improving condition. Wendy and I hoped to call this Shabbat and add our own Cookie stories. Indeed, I know that everyone attending this memorial service has their own Cookie stories, countless Cookie stories. And that is precisely what this gathering is all about. It is not to focus on the pain and the void caused by Cookie's death, but rather to acknowledge with gratitude the blessings that have come into our lives through Cookie, and the way she has woven her life into the stories that make up our own lives. Just at Temple Beth Shalom alone, there are hundreds upon hundreds of families who count Cookie as part of their own. Perhaps no one is more closely identified with TBS, its sisterhood, its preschool, or its religious school over the years than Cookie Stern. And so I would like to recall a few Cookie stories of my own. Actually, our Cookie stories, and by that I mean Wendy and my stories, began before I even entered the picture. One of Cookie's first jobs was in my father-in-law's dental office. She even babysat for Wendy and her sister Lori when they were young. The first wedding that Wendy ever attended was Cookie's marriage to Frank. Though we had little contact with Cookie until we came to TBS, she immediately set about making us welcome. It was as if things picked up right where they left off. During those first years, she played host to Wendy and me and Wendy's whole family every year for the High Holy Days. Dinner before the Holy Days was always around Cookie's table for years. It became a tradition. But we shared many other family events and holidays together as well, with Cookie coming to our home often, perhaps most notably when Wendy's sister Lori got married. It was at my first biennial convention of what was then the UAHC, with the TBS delegation, that Cookie approached me, confronted me, if truth be told. and wanted to know what I intended to do about social action at the temple. We weren't doing nearly enough, she said. She had been attending workshops at the convention and was inspired to get things going at the temple right away. So was I. And shortly after our return, our community service committee was created and our first mitzvah day was established with, you guessed it, Cookie as the chair. She liked being a catalyst, and she was a good one. And she was the catalyst for so many programs and projects that the list could go on and on. As I think about it, Cookie played many roles: friend, colleague, teacher, congregant, family member, advisor, caregiver, and more. But she did it all just being Cookie. And in being Cookie, her story wove its way with such meaning, sweetness, and influence into the stories that make up our lives. Consider how much she has given us, how much she continues to bless us. That is Cookie's continuing and undying legacy. We extend our deepest sympathies to Cookie's family, most especially to her children, Debbie and David, and to their father, Frank, and her grandchildren, Josh and Becca. May God watch over you and comfort you. The stories continue, and Cookie, you will still be a precious part of them. In life, Cookie Stern was a blessing. So may her memory abide with us, always as a gentle benediction. Amen. At this time, I'd like to invite forward Cookie's brother, Kenny.
Wow. What a great letter. And for you kids that came up and sang, I am absolutely certain that my sister Cookie heard you. And tears are rolling down her eyes, just like they were most everybody else here. As you just know, I'm Cookie's brother, Kenny. I'm so proud to have been Cookie's brother and to still be her brother. Just before I begin, I would like to extend my deepest thanks to the tremendous turnout tonight for all the support you gave my sister while she was ill. She loved each and every one of you. My family and I really appreciate that. I'm sure most of you would love to know how Cookie got her name. Well, just to go back in time a little bit, actually before I was born, my dad was convinced when he came home one day and saw my sisters crying, my sister Lenore and Cookie, because they couldn't go out and play and hadn't been able to go out because of the snow in Brooklyn, New York. He says, let's pack the bags, told his brothers he's moving, and off they went. Well, on the drive, which was a very long drive, my sister Lenore was just great. She would read, she would sing, she would look at the scenery, and she kind of enjoyed it, although she got a little bored, I heard. But Cookie was miserable. She cried, and she couldn't sleep, and she kept talking a mile a minute for hours and hours and hours until everybody that was in the car said enough is enough. So my mom, being the very smart mom, had a bag of cookies. So she gave Muriel a cookie. Well, that kind of worked for a couple of minutes. But then it all started all over again. So my mom continued through the rest of the trip giving Cookie a steady diet of cookies. From that moment on, everybody called her Cookie. And of course, as you all know, she kept that name until her very last day. I'm the baby. Cookie was the middle child, and Lenore the oldest, although to look at Lenore, she looks like my kid sister. It was interesting how we were so different growing up. Lenore was very flamboyant. I was very spoiled, of course, being the only son and being the last born. According to my sister Lenore, I was the voice of God. But Cookie was calm and peaceful and sweet. If our parents told us to go to our room because we misbehaved, Lenore would bolt. I would try and talk my way out of it. And Cookie would turn around and march into her room and take her punishment. That was Cookie. Cookie had 3 very, very important men in her life when she was very young. Of course, one was our dad. And the other was Rabbi Bernard Harrison, who passed away at an early age of 35. But he really molded Cookie's love for Judaism. And the last, if you can believe this, was Harry Belafonte. Our dad loved both of his girls and was a true model of what a gentleman should be. Rabbi Harrison wrote in Cookie's confirmation book that she was a woman of valor. Isn't it interesting that 2 rabbis in her life that meant so much to her called her a woman of valor? She held those words close to her all of her life. Now let's get to Harry. Cookie was deeply and passionately in love with Harry Belafonte. From the very moment that she first saw him on television, her love was so strong that she agreed to be a non-paid usher at his concert at the Greek Theater for several years just to hear him and watch his magical shows. She was smitten and worked every show he ever performed at the Greek Theater for several years. Maybe it was Harry that gave Cookie the gift of song. She had the voice of an angel. When our daughter Allison was bat mitzvahed, my wife Joni and I sat on the bima and listened to this remarkably gorgeous song come out of Cookie's voice, the voice of an angel, and tears rolled down both of our eyes. And the love that poured over Allison through that song was just incredible. She loved singing. She shared that gift with the kids she taught, all of you. And she loved all the temple kids that she had a relationship with and taught. She talked to me about that so many times over and over and over again. Cookie was really a kid at heart. My friend Lance is sitting right here, and I were really young kids, and we were so bored. We had nothing to do, and Cookie saw us, and she was kind of upset that we were bored. We didn't really have much going on. And it was in the summer, so she took out the hose, and we had this very steep stepping stones, cement stepping stones going up to our front door. So Cookie took the hose out, washed down the steps, and giggled as Lance and I were tumbling on our butt all the way down the steps, one by one by one by one. We'd come back one by one by one until our butt hurt so much we couldn't even walk. But Cookie laughed and giggled. You know, Cookie had a very infectious laugh. She laughed so hard sometimes and got us laughing so hard that we couldn't stop. And actually, she would get us laughing so hard that both she, I think Lenore and I, and anybody else around her would pee in our pants. Cookie's love for the Jewish life and the temple came very easy to her. As a family, our parents took us to services at Temple Emmanuel in Beverly Hills every Friday and most Saturday mornings. From time to time, when we were young kids, Cookie loved this so much, and there she found her calling. It was at Temple Emmanuel where she met Frank Stern, and the rest of that is clearly history. Cookie was a very proud Rebbitzin. She fit that role to a T, and in spite of a divorce, continued her love and devotion for this temple and all of its members. Cookie was made to be a mommy. The love for her kids was unparalleled. No matter what, her kids could do no wrong. And she protected them no matter what the circumstances were. When Josh and Becca were born, she became the typical Jewish Nama. She loved these kids with the depths of her heart. She used to call me every time she met and went to the house and had a good time with them to tell me every single detail and how Josh was learning and how Becca was growing up and all the joys that she found as a grandma. I kept telling Cookie when she was so sick that she had to fight because she had to be there for Becca at her bat mitzvah. And I know she tried so desperately hard, but time just ran out on her. Cookie was a wonderful aunt to our daughter Allison. Allison's in Miami, and she asked me to just pass on a few words for her. She loved having Aunt Cookie as her aunt, and she had a very, very special place in her heart. Her dedication to her temple inspired me to work in a temple myself and teach kindergarten. I will miss her very much. Cookie and I shared a horrible disease known as diabetes. I developed what is known as type 1 diabetes as an 11-year-old child. And Cookie developed type 2 diabetes when she was kind of middle-aged. I will never forget when I was released from the hospital after my diagnosis on May 10th, 1955. That day was Cookie's 16th birthday. And my first thing to do was to go to her Sweet 16. She was having such a good time, but when the cake was rolled out, she took a look at my face and saw how devastated I looked because I couldn't even have a taste of it because of the diabetes, and she came over to me and gave me a big hug and a kiss and said, "Don't worry, everything will be okay." And all the thoughts of having that cake disappeared. Those of us with diabetes always fear the black cloud of complications that can hit us without warning. Blindness, kidney disease, vascular disease causing amputation, and heart disease. Cookie was one of the unlucky ones who had diabetes. She fell victim to almost all of the complication that diabetes has to offer. My biggest fight ever with Cookie was her reluctance to learn more about her disease and how to protect her from the awful complications that diabetes can cause. But she always yelled back in my face, as stubborn as most of you know she could be. And she says, "Kenny, I have an angel on my shoulder that will take care of me, don't worry." She began to slowly show the debilitating effects of diabetes. I have known so many diabetic friends of mine who have been affected with the complications that diabetes has to offer, but I never met someone like Cookie who took each setback without complaint and kept moving forward. The final blow to her was her vascular and heart complications. She fought and fought, but in the end, she lost the battle, and diabetes once again won. We will all miss Cookie. I spoke to her every single week for many years. I know how much I will miss those calls. As my sweet Cookie comes to rest, I urge us all to dry your tears, suspend our sorrow, and perhaps our anger, just long enough to remember the sweet miracle of Cookie. Cookie's horoscope on the day she died was, you want to find an inspiring environment. Heed the tiny voice beckoning you toward that thing you've never seen or done before. My dear, sweet sister Cookie has found that place, and I pray she will rest in peace in God's arms for eternity. Thank you so much.
At this time, I'd like to invite forward Cookie's daughter, Debbie.
I knew someday this day would come, but I was hoping it would not be so soon. My mom had a lot of things to look forward to, and it saddens me that she won't be there for the special events that are coming. It does help the sadness a bit to see so many people who loved and cared for my mom and whose lives she touched. She was a very special woman who knew how to touch lives and to make and keep good friends. I grew up hearing stories about my mom's pregnancy with me. She and her best friend were pregnant at the same time, and my mom is still friends with her to this day. That's my mom. When you were her friend, you were her friend forever. So I entered this world learning my first lesson from my mom, a lesson about friendship. But I learned many other things throughout the years from her as well. She was, as you know, an excellent teacher. In addition to teaching many of you, she taught me many things as well. The earliest lesson I can recall learning from my mom was that bad things happen to good people. I was a small child and got stung by a bee while just curiously watching it. I struggled to understand why the bee would hurt me, even though I did nothing to the bee. I know my mom learned this lesson all too well too, and I know she is now in a place where she is no longer hurting, and that gives me some comfort. As the daughter of a rabbi, I grew up in a home where religion was always present. My mom was the one who taught me how to celebrate the holidays. She was the glue that brought the family and friends into our home for the holidays. From our weekly family Shabbat dinners, which when my friends were included made them feel so special, to our large Passover seders, and everything in between. Because of my mom's gift of being such a great hostess, I have wonderful memories of high holy days with a round challah baked especially for us from our dear friends, of Passover seders so crowded we could barely walk to our chairs, of Hanukkah celebrations where the singing would go on and on and on and on, and latke making where the latkes were eaten as fast as they were made. Because of this wonderful example, my children have also been blessed to have experienced Hanukkah celebrations with a lot of singing, maybe more than they want to, but I know they do it for me because they know how much I love it, as did my mom, and latkes. Sukkot with an actual sukkah we could build thanks to a kit my mom gave us, and my kids have had Passover seders where we've acted out the story and where our water actually turned to blood. All thanks to my mom and her creativity and love for teaching children and her love for the holidays. Jewish holidays were not the only holidays my mom taught me how to celebrate. Thanksgiving used to be at my aunt's house, but when that ended, my mom continued to keep the family together by helping me have them at my house. For all holidays, my job was decorating the house, setting the table, and being the sous chef. I learned from my mom how to plan a party, how to set a beautiful table, and how to be a good assistant in the kitchen. One year, she even tried to teach me how to make the turkey. I wish she could have stayed long enough to finish this lesson. We would have had her for many more years if she had. Halloween was also a holiday I looked forward to as a kid. My first memory of California after we moved here from Ohio was of sitting in a restaurant with my mom and planning my costume for my new doctor's Halloween carnival. I ended up being a cat and a black leopard. She helped me through costume designs and school projects to be creative, which is not one of my strengths, but one I was much better at with her help. Valentine's Day was also a holiday I have good memories of, as my mom would decorate the house and do something special for my brother and I, even though the next day was my birthday. She taught me how important birthdays are, and that even if your birthday is near or on a holiday, your birthday gets to be celebrated in addition to the holiday, not included in the holiday. And my mom was amazing at making my birthday special. My favorite birthday celebrations included my 14th birthday, in which we turned my garage into a disco, complete with foil on the walls and a record player, with lots of the latest 45s for my friends and I to play, and my mom and I had a great time shopping for just the perfect outfit. And my Sweet 16, which I was dreading, until my mom said I didn't have to have the traditional one with girls dressed in dresses and tea sandwiches, but it was my birthday and I could have whatever I wanted. So I had a large sleepover party with friends from camp, school, and temple. My mom made a huge spaghetti dinner, and we had kids sleeping in sleeping bags all over the downstairs, including under the piano. This lesson is being passed from my mom to me to my kids, as I have enjoyed planning many fun birthday parties for my kids, as my mom did for me. Of course, my bat mitzvah was another opportunity for my mom to pass on more of her wisdom. I can recall practicing on our landing with my mom coaching me to read slower or louder as she sat as far back as she could, so I would learn to project and enunciate. This was just recently passed down to Joshua, as I did the same for him prior to his bar mitzvah, and just as it did for me, it paid off for him as well. I can recall sitting at a table up in the mountains in a rented cabin over winter break, working on my bat mitzvah speech with my mom, as well as working on the service and poring over prayers and psalms and working together to create a service unique just for me. She really took my bat mitzvah in stride. My parents had planned a special reception for me, but the first day the response cards were returned, our mailbox was overflowing with yes responses. And my mom realized quickly a change of plans was going to have to occur. And she did. She rearranged the entire plans, and because of her vision, it all went off without a hitch and was a beautiful day. My fondest memories of my mom are from our family vacations. Most years we went up north to Camp Swig, a camp my mom had attended as well, and a camp that has now been passed down to my kids and their friends as well. While at camp, my mom finally got the break she deserved. She didn't have to cook, cleaning was a minimum, and entertaining us kids was taken care of, so she just got to play, go into town with her friends, and she even learned to make jam while at camp. I loved how relaxed she was when we were at camp. The summers we went to camp, we spent about 2 days driving up and then a couple of weeks at camp. After camp, we would go on a vacation on the way home. My mom, who taught me about following rules, one year snuck me into the men's room at the Madonna Inn. Another year, we had a cabin and got to feed the deer every morning. We went to Big Sur, San Francisco, Winchester Mystery House, and so many other wonderful destinations on the way home, many of which I've taken my children to, as they are still some of my favorite spots. A special vacation we took was renting an RV and traveling to Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon. Unlike the break she got when we were at Camp Swig, I can recall how hard my mom worked on that vacation, cooking and moving the beds up and down. She taught me on that trip how hard it is to be the mom, but how important it is to go places, no matter how hard that will be. My favorite vacation was my dad's sabbatical when we traveled to Israel and Europe and England. My mom adapted to shopping and cooking in a foreign country without any difficulty, a lesson she unfortunately did not pass down to me. She quickly learned to read labels in a language she could not yet read. She made our apartment a home away from home with some new foods and some comfort foods. On this trip, she taught me sometimes it's important to spend more money for good tuna. Also, it's important to hold on to the passports. Of course, I also learned the value of respect for others, including people of different religions and cultures. This was a lesson my mom lived wholeheartedly and one I learned from an early age and is still near and dear to my heart, as it was to hers. I was blessed that my mom got to go on many vacations with my family and me, even as I was an adult. We had a great trip to Hawaii, wonderful cruises with extended family, and of course many trips to Israel. Although we didn't live close enough to see my mom on a regular basis, it was nice that my children and I got to spend holidays and vacations with my mom. One special memory my son Joshua and I share is of our family pretzel bake-offs. My mom's grandfather baked pretzels, and in his honor, every year we would gather at my great-aunt's house and bake pretzels. We would put flour on anyone who it was their first experience with the bake-off, one of my son's favorite parts. We got to roll dough and shape the dough, and top the dough with an onion and poppy seed mixture, bake the pretzel, and then, of course, eat the pretzel. As much fun as all that was, the best part was having the whole family together and sharing stories of our family as we sat around the table eating our pretzels. The pretzel bake-off began before I even had children. I know my mom couldn't wait for me to be a mother. It was so fun when we told her we were expecting, and the months planning for the arrival of Joshua were very special. Shopping at Babies R Us and trying to figure out which things we needed and which gadgets we could go without. Of course, most things in the store my mom didn't have, and she did just fine raising my brother and I without them, so it was a challenge, but a fun one. When the day finally arrived and I was in labor, we had given my mom a pager, and we paged her. She was at lunch with a friend and didn't know her pager was going off. I was afraid she would miss it after all this planning, but Joshua took his time, and my mom was there in time. She was the one who was holding my legs, helping me push, and she was the one who recited the Shehachianu, the Jewish prayer for new and special occasions or experiences, when he finally arrived. She was also the one who watched over him when he had to go to the nursery for observation, and she was the one the pediatric cardiologist had to assure that Joshua would be able to have his bris, have his bar mitzvah, and would be just fine. My mom wouldn't let me set up the nursery or wash any baby clothes other than a receiving blanket and one outfit to take him home from the hospital before he was born. I was concerned about all the work to get it ready, and yet somehow, magically in just one night, when we arrived home from the hospital with Joshua, the nursery was set up and the clothes were washed and ready to wear. My mom helped a lot in the beginning. She took care of the household things so I could learn to be a good mom. She even watched Joshua for me, the whole time with her hand on him to make sure he was breathing while he slept on his stomach, so I could get a new dress for his bris. Nothing fit. My mom made Joshua's bris a very special occasion, cooking the food herself and helping us make the service a unique and meaningful experience for everyone. Even the Moyle stayed afterwards and enjoyed the meal my mom had prepared. From the very beginning, Joshua and my mom had a special relationship. For a week, my mom watched Joshua while I did a bike ride for charity, and at the end of the week, she gave Joshua a photo album of all the fun they had had. He loved that album and looked at it often. He still has it, and it's still a treasured memory. My mom had a gift for making occasions, even just going to preschool with Nama, a special event. When Becca was born, another special bond was formed. Becca smiled her first smile just hours after she was born, while still in the hospital and being held in my mom's arms, looking up at my mom. It was my mom who taught me about having a service in baby naming for Becca as we did for Joshua, and it was my mom who made that day in honor of Becca a very momentous day. Being Joshua and Rebecca's Nama was a highlight for my mom, and my children were so lucky to have her as their grandma. She taught them lessons too. She taught them Hanukkah and Passover songs. She taught them how to be a good Jew and how to be kind to others. And she taught them the lesson I learned from her womb: when you make a good friend, keep them. My mom and I didn't always see things the same way, and one of the many blessings I am grateful for was that she taught me that I can be a strong and independent person. And because of her lessons of friendship and others, I am the capable woman I am today, and I am the mom I am today because of the example she set for me. And I am able to be here today, on this most difficult day, to say goodbye to my mother, who was so loved, and I can do that surrounded not just with her friends, but with mine as well, as her lessons just keep continuing. Mom, I do love you, and I'm going to miss you, I hope you are at peace and back in the arms of your loving parents and with all your other many family and friends that have gone before you. You leave behind a long legacy of people who will be better off having had you in their lives. Rest in peace, knowing you are loved and missed. I love you.
I'd like to invite forward now her son, David.
Thank you all for coming. We've been together for so many things. When great-grandpa was living with us and came to Temple, and you treated him like he was your great-grandpa, and he passed, and there you all were. And I don't really remember Grandpa's funeral that well, but I know that at Grandma's you were all there as well. And here we are, and here you all are. And it seems like my whole life, you've always been there for life events. I feel blessed to have a home, a place that has love. And it's interesting when you have a mom who's uniquely tolerant for your goofiness. I was a goofy kid, and it was as if by her accepting me, I could be goofier, if that makes sense. So early I understood that I could be myself, which is a hard lesson to learn as a child, because you want to be all these things, but to be loved and as myself, just being myself. And then you realize not every mom is like your mom, so you're your goofy self, and now so I got to find out that I was blessed to have such a great mom. She really was unbelievable. The way she approached problems. She gave great advice. She only wanted what we wanted for us. She adored cooking and teaching, and the joy in the effort. It takes like committees of people to do what she used to do for Onyx and dinners. I was just cleaning up some paperwork, and in the minutes of a board meeting, it just said for the dinner that they were going to do, talk to Cookie. There's a lot of times that the phone would have that type of a message. I was told to call you because you might know how to put together Havaraz, and she loved her doctors. Kaiser, she got whatever she wanted. Yeah, she told them what she wanted or needed, and they really did do it for her. And the last few years haven't been easy for her, but she was teaching, I think, she had scaled it back a little, but she had a class for right up until this year. So they talk about what keeps people going, and the love of teaching and children and being involved and being it's as if you pass something on bigger than the root of whatever it is you wanted to. So it's, some teachers can teach and then others can teach about big subject matters. And then you try to emulate that and you can't do it. So teaching came very readily to me, and education's always been a huge part of our family. And I tried to do all her tricks. How she commanded a room, how she got kids to behave, how she, and it's hard. Because it's the approach to it. The way you approach it is, the best moment to be taught is if it comes through you. If you're the one teaching yourself and she's just kind of guided. And my dad was telling me about his teacher once told him that a good teacher doesn't use a lot of words, that the better the teacher becomes, the less words it takes. So I was like, oh, great, you know. And that was kind of the condensed version of her with cooking, with people, with approach to life, is just condensing it down to its essence and conveying that. And I think if she was here, she would really feel all of the love that you all have for her. I know that she's my mom, and and this is her family, but if I were to ask you who thinks that she's a part of your family, okay, let's do that. So who has Cookie as a member of their family? Who is Cookie's best friend in here? You all are. I'm so thankful for all the love, and I just know that we'll get through all this. It hasn't been easy, and it won't be easy, but we'll all get through it. Thank you.
David, you're right. There are so many friends here. And at this time, I want to invite forward a very, very special friend who has been with her and the family for so many years, and loving her and representing all of us, Michelle Sugarman.
Wow, this is my first chance to see how many people are here. What a wonderful tribute. I'm so honored to be here this evening representing our congregation and Cookie's family and friends. What did you call Cookie? Cookie started life as Muriel Sue Bernstein, then Cookie Stern. Her Hebrew name was Miriam, but most people called her Cookie. Nama, Grandma Cookie, Cookala, like her license plate, Ms. Cookie, so rarely Mrs. Stern. I will not hesitate to tell you that it was extremely difficult to write this. When I finished, I felt like I had experienced just about every emotion possible. Some of the toughest parts were being nervous, having to reflect on my grief, my loss, worrying about getting through it without breaking into tears, and trying not to forget anyone. Some of the best parts about this were reflecting back on all of the great memories, the special people in her life, the amazing things she did for me and others, the funny stories, and being able to heal by sharing and expressing my thoughts and feelings with you. These things I know for sure. She cared more about her family and her friends than she did for herself. She rarely wanted to talk about herself, but rather listen and learn about you. In fact, she rarely steered away from her interest about you, unless it was to talk about family, especially for her grandchildren, Josh and Becca. For you, the sun rose and set. I've known Cookie for over 35 years, and I've heard about the family and met many of you in person and through stories told with love. I know that many of you here today were her students in preschool and religious school. For many of you, Cookie taught you and then your children. This in itself is a lasting tribute to her memory. Cookie had a unique talent for making and keeping friends. We may not have known each other, but Cookie was the constant. In the last few years, our Canasta group was one thing that she looked forward to each week. We met in various homes and even at the nursing facility and her own home, much to Cookie's delight. She was good at Canasta, really good, and managed to take us for lots of money. Cookie was from the beginning a sisterhood member. She was a terrific volunteer, prided herself in making fabulous congregational Shabbat dinners. She was honored with the title of Shana, which means sisterhood has all your needs at heart. Finally, she was president of the TVS Sisterhood and has now joined the ranks of those wonderful women who predeceased her. The temple meant everything to her. When she was able, David would bring her to Shabbat service. She even made it to high holiday services this year. Her faith was got her through many trying times. Many years ago, Cookie and I spent a weekend in the desert. Debbie Friedman of blessed memory had a home there, and we visited. What a treat it was for me. Debbie and Cookie were old friends, and they sat together and sang while I listened to their beautiful voices. I didn't dare join in since my singing ability is non-existent. To paraphrase Debbie's lyrics to Hashkivenim, you touched many a soul and we witnessed the changes. You knew that it was nothing more to fear. With every challenge, we felt your strength. Your goodness shined, and it was a shelter of courage, a shelter of light and dreams, a shelter of love, a shelter of peace. When Debbie Friedman died, there was an outpouring of grief, remembrance, and songs. One of the rabbis unable to attend this extraordinary memorial service was Rabbi Deborah Gordon. She wrote a tribute including these words that could have been about Cookie, and that I leave you with. Zicharona Livracha. Let us learn from the best of what she has taught us to help us find the courage to make our own lives a blessing, as she did, so that her life and ours continue to be a blessing. Cookie, you were loved. You will be remembered.
Like Michelle, I have to admit that this was definitely one of the hardest eulogies I've ever had to write. Trying to find the right place to start and the right words. But really, every word is the right one. Every memory is precious. Every song is the most beautiful. Like many of us here tonight, Cookie was the first person we met when we came to Temple Beth Shalom. She came as a Rebbitzin with her then husband, Rabbi Frank Stern, and she took that role very seriously and to heart. It was something she talked about and planned with other rabbis' wives, for there were no women rabbis when Frank was ordained. They would talk about how they would move into their new communities following school, and become the support and the strength behind their husbands, the rabbi. She felt the importance of her being there to welcome new congregants, develop lasting relationships with those who came before, and create a foundation of learning and song for the children. She strongly believed and taught that her home should always be available and open to anyone, for they could drop by at a moment's notice. She made this very clear to me when Matt and I arrived in Orange County over 15 years ago. I actually wasn't sure that Cookie knew what to do with us. She was the consummate Rebbitzin teacher, teaching rabbis' wives the importance of creating a welcoming home for anyone to come for holidays or socials, along with always being presentable in public, for you never knew who you were going to run into. Let's just say, I don't know that she was so certain what to teach Matt about hosting dinners and special guests. Okay, and she definitely had some opinions about my choice of pants versus skirts and dresses on the bima. I was not her typical rabbi, and Matt, well, we just call him Rebbitz. Or even better, Lucky. I quickly came to understand and appreciate the various ways in which Cookie was woven into the fabric of our congregation. She knew everyone, their stories, their background, every detail about their lives. If I ever had a question about who was related to whom, or connections through chavurot or sisterhood, Cookie had that information right there in her memory banks. And she loved it. She loved everyone's stories and loved being involved in every aspect of a person's life. Cookie was there for weddings. She opened the door as the bride came in, prepared to enter the chuppah with her groom. Cookie was there when a child entered the world, ready to embrace, love, and cherish as only she could. Cookie was there when boys and girls were called to Torah as bar and bat mitzvah, there giving them the Kiddush cup from sisterhood and her special blessing that only Cookie could give. And Cookie was there when someone passed, attending Shiva Minyanim, calling loved ones, and being the stable, constant presence when life seemed to be turned on its head. Cookie was the rock and the strength, there to help anyone through life's challenging times. When Matt and I announced that we were going to have a baby, Cookie was the first one to say, "Great, I'm organizing all of the bakers for the baby's welcome to TBS." And there was no saying no to her. And when Davi was born, Cookie was not kidding. She organized and ensured that everyone brought their best baked goods, no store-bought goods. She wanted it to come from the love of their own hands. And we were so overjoyed by the sweetest reception we could ever imagine. And Cookie did the same for Yoni when he was born, for his upsharon, and last year when Davi became bat mitzvah. And tonight, we have brought our offerings for her for a sweet memory. Cookie became Grandma Cookie to Davi and Yoni. She deeply respected Matt's and my parents and did not want to take anything away from them, but she also never wanted Davi or Yoni to feel left out during school events when other kids had local grandparents. Cookie was there when Davi received her first siddur and then when she first read Torah at Morashah. Cookie loved bring a grandparent to lunch day, and even made special times for both of our kids to go out to lunch with her and just have Grandma Cookie time. Over the past few days, I've been speaking to so many of her students who loved her and whose lives were changed by her. When Devon's grandmother died, Cookie was there for her. Claire shared with me a beautiful letter that Cookie gave her when her family moved to North Carolina. Wonderful memories of Cookie's Corner with pizza, songs, and stories. Stories shared with Clarissa by those who experienced Cookie's love and caring. Cookie taught so many of our students here tonight. She encouraged them to sing and know the importance of prayer. She reminded Aaron to always believe in himself and that, yes, life takes hard work and determination. Nothing is ever handed to us. She created memories that we as parents took home, including the stacks of Passover Seder plates, one for each year. I think I had service for 12. Cookie could command a room in any space. Every morning during preschool, Cookie would ring her bell, and the kids immediately gathered in a circle with parents and teachers to sing, "Good morning, Boker Tov, Tov, Tov." Just her presence brought everyone together, and she captivated our attention. Cookie not only taught our children, but she especially taught the adults. She made it very clear that our children learn from our actions, that we needed to lead by example. She was the force behind Mitzvah Day. She was the inspiration for many community service projects. She was a true Shena through sisterhood. And she made it clear that if we are to succeed as a congregation, if we are to ensure that the Jewish people, the Jewish community, and this congregation are going to be here for our children and their children, then we cannot wait for someone else to do the work or take responsibility. Cookie taught us that it is imperative upon each of us to ensure that there is a Jewish future by living our Jewish values, supporting the synagogue, teaching ourselves and especially our children. She knew that we could never say, "Oh, someone else will take care of it," or "I know it will be here when I need it." She knew that life was precious and each moment was a gift. Debbie, David, Josh, and Becca, thank you for sharing your mother, your grandmother with us. Thank you, Kenny and Lenore, for sharing your sister with us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to love her as she loved us. And while she cared for us, you were her family, the family whom she loved with every fiber of her being, and she was sure to tell each and every one of us that. So as I sat close to her in the hospital, I held on to her, and I sang her the blessing of our people, one that she bestowed upon so many herself. And she asked that someday, when her time came to leave us, that I would share this with you. It was her blessing to all of us. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha God bless you with good and keep you safe. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God be with you and be kind to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha. V'yatzem lecha shalom, shalom. May you always know that God is close, and may God give you the gift of peace. May Cookie's memory always be a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Cookie was our teacher, and we were her students. And there is a beautiful prayer and tradition to recite Kaddish to Rabbanan, the Kaddish for our teachers. And so we turn on the half sheets here, and we join together with this prayer, a prayer for Cookie, our teacher.
For our teachers and their students, and the students of the students, we ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. And for those who study Torah, here and everywhere, may they be blessed with all they need, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen.
We rise now for El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, shochein במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת מרים שושנה, בת אברהם וגיטל, שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים, יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום במשכבה, ונאמר Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence. To Miriam, Shoshana, Bat Avram, Vagitel, to Muriel, Sue, Cookie, Stern, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. As we continue now with Kaddish Yatom, our mourner's Kaddish, which you can find in your booklets on page 8. Yitzkadal v'yitzkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad zivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'elam olomei olmaya, v'yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemeh, V'Kudasha, B'Richu, Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Da'amiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Osei Shalom b'imromav, Hu ya'aseh Shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. As we close our memorial to our beloved Cookie, we join together with the song L'chilach, that not only should we go on our way, but also, God, please allow her to be there wrapped in the wings of your divine presence, and that her journey should be one of peace. To a land that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. On your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing, L'chilach, and I shall make your name great. Lech lecha, and all shall praise your name. L'chilach, to the place that I will show you. Lesimchat chayim, lesimchat chayim, lesimchat chayim, l'chilach. You shall be a blessing, you shall be a blessing, you shall be a blessing, Hamakom yenachem etchem b'toch sha'ar v'elei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. Now, allow us to go forth in peace to life, and let us say, Amen. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. And also, just a note that there will be Shiva Minyanim services tomorrow night at our house at 7 o'clock. If you need our address, we will gladly share it with you. And also then on Wednesday evening, 6 o'clock here at TBS. So tomorrow is at 7, Wednesday is at 6. But let us all together share the beautiful, sweet memories that Cookie shared with us. And may her memory be a blessing. Amen.
Amen.